Audio sound okay? I'm on a whole new rig right now, so I want to make sure you can hear me okay.
Yeah, you sound great, and we
Okay.
are live. And let me make sure this is in all the right spots that it's supposed to be. It looks like a couple people are joining us. That's always cool. Welcome, welcome. So, why were you up at 3 a.m. this morning, Jace?
Because I have dogs, and the dogs like to get me up at 3 a.m. to go pee. And then sometimes I look at my email when I shouldn't at that point, which is a bad idea every time.
Every time.
So, mm-hmm.
Well, you and I must be connected on the Psychic Friends internet because 3 nights ago and 2 nights ago, I slept like 10 or 12 hours. And then last night, I was up at 3:30 in the morning.
Yeah, it happens.
It was just weird.
It's a strange world we live in right now.
It is a strange world we're living in right now, isn't it?
Some might say unprecedented if you've watched the marketing on television lately. I long for the world of the precedented. I'm tired of
Let's
the
go back to
unprecedented.
precedented.
Please.
We're done with unprecedented.
Definitely.
Yeah, and we had a scare with one of our hens this morning or yesterday, and so Annabelle is not right, and her energy's off, and so forth and so on. And by the way, for those of you joining us, if you have questions, we'll take them. We have a ton of questions in the mailbag, but if you have questions, we want to hear about them. I think the way this works is you put questions in the chat, and then I think we see in the comments of the chat or whatever, and I think we see them. So if you have questions, get them all ready. Anyway, so Annabelle's not right yesterday. We take her to the vet. And have you been to a social distanced vet yet?
Yeah, unfortunately we have. It comes down to, for us, you drop the pet off and you leave. You're not allowed to go in or anything, which is terrifying.
And at our vet, not only that, they won't talk to you. You got to pull up. And our friend Eric Hunley says, yes, questions go here. Excellent. Thank you. I'm glad there's a professional around. Anyway, you pull into the parking lot at the vet, and then you got to call the vet, and then they come out and talk to you and all this stuff. But anyway, here's the net of it. Guess what's wrong with Annabelle?
What?
She likes to eat metal.
Oh, that's not good.
Apparently, certain chickens really like shiny objects, and they eat them.
So what's the verdict?
The verdict is antibiotics and flush her stomach out, and she'll just sort of poop it out. And our doctor wants to see her again today, but so far she's doing great. Oh, look at that! We're on Twitter. That's exciting.
All right. It's better than the Rottweiler. They call them Rockweilers for a reason, because they like to eat rocks, and that's a $4,000 surgery right there. So
wow,
not good. Yeah.
So they're probably a little more expensive than hens.
Little bigger, and I'm not comfortable leaving my 125-pound killing machine with strangers if I can avoid it. So,
well, not that I'm a stranger, but I appreciate you not letting your killing machine run around the neighborhood, even if I don't live in the hood.
Yeah.
All right.
Shall we get to the first question?
Why not? What are we going to start off with? You're in charge of the mailbag.
All right, we got Sarah D. Sarah writes in, how do brands figure out what to do and say given everything that's going on in the world? We want to support social justice, the economy coming back, and people's health and safety, but at the same time, we need to drive revenue. Somebody's got to get paid.
Yeah, this is interesting, right? Because we're now starting to see what appears to be the largest onslaught of social consciousness, social justice marketing ever. Right. For a while, we were seeing the ads with the sort of the piano music and the black and the white, and at the very end, it would say, thank you, healthcare heroes. And so like every company had to do one of those.
Yeah.
The most dramatic one I've seen, I think I put it somewhere. I think I put it on my Facebook page. I want to read it right so that is an ad from Nike. It's just black with white writing, no swoosh, no nothing. And all it says is, don't pretend there's not a problem in America.
Nice.
So look, I think we're at a time where I'll say almost every company um, needs to be seen taking a stand right now, because I think it matters. And even if we end up with a lot of ads that look the same, I think right now that's okay. So I think if there's something for you to say about the current circumstance that we're in, and you want to show support, and you want to take a stand, then I think you should do that. I think the tougher question, and I think not doing it for, I'll just say many, I won't say all. I don't, there's always situations where it might not be appropriate or whatever. But I think for a lot of brands, making a public statement right now is a very smart thing to do. And on a personal level, I've gotten into multiple fights, and we've had the episode we just did on marketing for social justice caused a tremendous amount of upset with a bunch of people, and a lot more applause, but a bunch of upset. So I think if you're going to enter into these waters, and I think a lot of brands should, and a lot of people should, take a stand, be very clear about it, and be ready for some backlash. And I think on a personal level, like, I don't give a shit if you think that what I have to say about this situation, or the role that legendary marketing can play in driving social change and driving the world to move from the way it is to the way we want it to be. I think marketing is incredibly important for that. And so, there's been people who don't like that and argue with me about it and say I'm trying to do this and say I'm trying to do that. So I think if you're going to take a stand, the bottom line is be ready for the fallout. But I think it's important for a lot of companies to take a stand. The tougher question, actually, although that's tough, the tougher part, I think, is how do you do marketing right now that does make the cash register sing without looking like an insensitive group of assholes? And I think the answer to that is be thoughtfully aggressive, but radically generous. And, I know I've been talking about this a lot lately, Eddie and I, but I think there's things that you can do that put your company in a positive light, but that also help to drive revenue. And so I would suggest, ask the question, what can we do with our marketing right now that makes a difference and drives the cash register at the same time? And I think you can do that. I think that being associated with a local food bank as a way to raise the profile of your company, and if you're a business that's been shut down, to let your community know that you're there, I think you can do that. I think you could do simple things like make masks with your logo on them, or some awesome saying, or So I think there's things that you can do to sort of say, hey, we're here and we're trying to be part of the solution. And make no mistake, we'd love you if you did some business with us. So I it's a tough line to walk. The other thing I would say, and I've been doing this myself, the number of people I check with before I launch shit today has increased. So I might feel passionately and want to take a stand or say something or whatever. I am being more purposely cautious, which is unusual for me. I think it's a good strategy right now, because I think a lot of us, myself included, feel pretty raw. And so I think getting extra eyes on it, and I think this is frankly an area where diversity matters. I'm about to make a statement about police, which I shared with you, and I shared with Jamie, and I shared with a number of my friends, and I made sure that I shared that with a diversity of people, young people, older people, people of different backgrounds, and of course, people of different races and colors, because I wanted to make sure I hit the right note. And so I think now's a time, if you're gonna step into the mix, so to speak, even if it's in you're trying not necessarily to be controversial, I think it's a good time to be super thoughtful and to run your sort of position, run your campaign, run your marketing idea through a wider set of people and a more diverse set of people than you might otherwise. That's what I've been doing. That's what I've been advising some of the companies I still work with on. I don't know. Do you have anything you want to add there, Jace, as a technology guy and as a consumer of marketing?
No, you've done a really good job with that. Of course, I can never do better than you. What do you think? You're the
Yeah, I
marketing
know, but
guy.
you're way better at me figuring out how to make all this podcast shit work. I'll tell you.
Yeah. We did have a conversation over on Grumpy Old Geeks this morning about Zoom and their latest marketing, where they completely missed the mark, which was kind of funny. They said that we're going to do end-to-end encryption, but we're only going to do it for paying members, because for the free users, we want the FBI to be able to read what they're listening to
No,
and
they
see
did
what
not
they're
say
doing.
that.
They absolutely did, my friend.
Were
And
they joking?
I'm pretty sure not, because it comes from the CEO. So they stepped in it on their marketing with that one. It's just like, and we agreed on the show. We're like, why don't you just say you're a company and you make money? And some people get a tiered experience, because if you're not going to pay, we're not going to give you all the perks. But if you want to pay, you get all the perks. That's what a company does. They're in business. Instead of saying, throwing the FBI and the CIA under the bus, saying, well, sometimes Al Qaeda might need to see your Zooms. It's like, no, that's not the way to do it. You should do it the way that it's meant to be.
Uh,
We're a business.
I'll have to
And
check that out.
that's how you,
I mean,
yeah, that's how
as
you
you know,
not do it in this.
Eric's been on a couple times. He's very far from dumb. I'll tell you that. So,
Yeah.
film at 11, I
That's why it
guess.
was very strange to see, because we're just like, I know from listening to him on your show that, he's a smart guy. He's a sharp knife,
Very
but
sharp
I don't
knife.
know
Yeah.
what happened there. That was a strange
Mm.
one. So that's not how you market in a pandemic and global crisis.
Probably doesn't sound like it. Hi, Bradley. Aloha to you too. And thank you so much for making those video clips for us. They're awesome. Bradley got creative with some Podstorm video clips recently, and it was very cool.
Hopefully he gave me some hair. That'd be nice.
Yeah, if you could make me look more like The Rock, that would be great.
All right, shall we move on to Sandy?
Yes, what did Sandy say?
Sandy would like to know, I'm in my first CMO job. I have about 15 years of experience, and we're a B2B software company. Do you have any advice for me? CMOs seem to get fired a lot.
Yes, I think we're the number one most fired executive. I don't know if that's still accurate, but if not, we're way high up there. Yeah, I do, having been through it multiple times. I think this may sound obvious, but the first thing is your entire ability to be effective and successful as a CMO, in my experience, is as a direct result of your relationship with the chief executive officer. And so if you are not working with the CEO on a regular basis, the CEOs that I worked with and worked for, I would talk to him. It would be very unusual to go 3 days without talking to him. And I traveled a shit ton as a CMO. And if we didn't actually talk, certainly text, email, that kind of stuff, sharing experiences. So I think if you believe what I believe, which is the CMO job is a highly strategic job, the relationship with the CEO matters a lot, and working with her on all of the key strategic initiatives in the company is a very critical part. Being in deep communication, being the personal press secretary for the CEO, I think is very important as well. And of course, being a spokesperson for the company. So the first thing is get that CEO relationship really right. The second one is one of the main reasons, particularly in the software business, CMOs get fired is they don't make the cash register sing. And so, look, there's always this stupid conversation about leads. Well, marketing's not giving you enough qualified leads. Sales is not following up on it. And it just is this idiotic discussion. So there's a couple ways to solve this. The sales force wants and needs leads. That's a very real thing. We're trying to sell stuff. And so give them the leads. Build a lead generation machine. Build an appointment setting machine. Stuff them with leads. Just go get that done. It's not that hard. It's not that complex. It's work. It takes some analysis. Data is your friend. But go get them leads. Go to the lead store and buy some. And just kind of get that to go away. The second thing is make friends with the field. If you look at the two organizations that hate sales the most, that marketing the most, it's sales and it's engineering. make friends with both. And so in my case, what I did was I tried to spend about 50% of my time in the field on sales calls. And of course, I would go do marketing oriented things as well, but spend time in the field with sales reps and set as a goal for yourself to become the number one most requested executive on a sales call. Because the truth is, marketing is in a lot of ways sales scale. And if the sales force respects you and thinks that putting you in front of prospects and customers is going to increase the likelihood they buy, then you're a legendary CMO. CMOs who are viewed as a joke by the field are finished. So that would be another one to focus on. On the engineering side, Jace, what I would do, I would swap jobs with the head of engineering a couple times a year.
Oh, I'm sure that'll go over well for the under engineers.
The funny thing is, it was really great. And I think the marketers liked it. And I would go to their product planning meetings and, talk about bug reports and talk about new features and whatever was going on. He would literally take my calendar. I would take his calendar. We'd make things a little bit special, of course. But in general, my week didn't look that different than his normal week because we were swapping jobs. And what it did was it built deep relationships between engineering and marketing, just like me as a CMO being in the field helped to do the same thing. I encourage my campaign managers and product managers to do the same thing from a marketing side. I spent a lot of time in the field, travel. I was always a huge supporter of travel, particularly to go see customers. And so when you get that right, those relationships right, and you get the field leads, now, once you nail that, you have an opportunity to go get the big stuff done, which is drive a category strategy, build a provocative and engaging point of view that'll move a market category from where it is today to the way you want it to be, and do the strategery. And so the big mistake I see is a lot of CMOs want to go do the strategery, go do the high creative stuff, do the fun stuff, as opposed to build those relationships, drive revenue, and then get the big stuff done. Oh, and one other thing. For at least 6 months, don't even talk about changing the logo.
Oh, man.
It is like clockwork. A new CMO comes in and we're getting a new fucking logo. And a lot of people, rightfully so, look at that and go, you're fucking with the logo. Where are my leads, Jimmy? Right? So unless the logo is on fire and you really have to do it immediately, I've seen it happen and I've changed logos in my life. So I get it. Don't make that the first thing in your agenda because it sends a bad signal that you want to play with the toys as opposed to get down to business.
That's funny. What size companies were you dealing with then? Because I'm used to dealing with under 50-person companies. So the chief marketing officer would always hang out with us, say at Technorati, when we were like about a 30-person company. And we did change the logo, but that came from the CEO, not the CMO. And but we were always kind of an inclusive unit. So I think if you put some context on the size of the companies you're talking about, that would help kind of wrap our heads around it, because I think you're talking about much larger companies, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Jace. Size and stage of growth probably matter a lot, right? So, look, if you're a new CMO at a Series B company that's got 50 people, and the first logo was you got the founder got on Fiverr and it looks like a kid created it.
Bingo.
Right? If you're sort of at that stage, then it might be very appropriate to make one of the first 3 things you do as a CMO is to actually go get that done. So I think you're absolutely right. Size and stage matters a lot. And I've been in the earliest of early startups and been in multi-billion-dollar companies, so seen a wide range of it. But yeah, typically it's at the bigger company where you don't want to start there. If you're at a smaller company and you need a new logo, then maybe you need to get that done. But don't play with the pretty toys too much, especially if you're not delivering leads and you're not partnering deep with engineering.
All right, we got another one from Jada G. Do you know of any marketing groups or masterminds for people of color?
Well, Jada, when your email came into me, I had a ear-to-ear grin because I've been thinking that a lot, and I have actually reached out to a number of very high-profile African-American CMOs that I know and said, hey, I'm just curious. Does this exist? And I have not found it yet. And to a person, every CMO that I've asked this question to says the same thing. No, I haven't. That's a great idea. Let me know if you find one. So I sort of, not that I have time to do it or anything like that, but I sort of thought, how weird would it be if a white guy started a CMO group or a marketing group for people of color? I don't know. We live at times where sometimes it's hard to know. But anyway, I haven't heard yet. I'm keeping my ears open. Here's what I will promise to do: if I find one that looks, credible and cool and interesting, I will promise to put it on social media, put it on our Facebook group, and say, hey, check out, XYZ cool marketing group for people of color. And if anybody decides they want to found one and they want some love and support, I'm happy to love and support as much as I can.
All right. I mean, in the meantime, all masterminds and marketing groups would be people of every color. So I don't be afraid to go join a group just because it's just a general group. Get out there and talk to your fellow colleagues, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this concept of a mastermind is something that's really sort of exploded in, I don't know, maybe the last decade or 15 years or something. And there's some of these super ding dong mastermind groups that charge
hustle.
Yeah, those guys have the
hustle guys,
hustle nut tickle club, where they charge $100,000 a year to come together and hustle each other's nut.
Or they literally pass their balls around, saying, "Okay, who's got the ball? They can talk now. Give us $100,000." Oh, man.
Don't join any of those. Eric has an interesting point. Eric says, have you thought about posting the questions from the mail in the chat? So I guess, let me ask you a technical question, Eric. Would we just put the questions as banners and put them in? Is that how we do that? Maybe answer back in the chat. You could give us a little technical advice. I'm assuming that's how you do it.
I've been talking to him while you've been going, and I don't have a way to post comments into the live comments. So I'll send it to you, Chris, in the private chat, and hopefully you can take that and put it up as a banner, because this is our next question.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to try a test here to just see if this works. This is a test. Let's see. Oh, I see. Look at that. Hey, Eric.
Oh, look at that.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we can get rid of that. All right. Let's see. Bradley's got a question for us.
All right. Let's do Bradley's question then. Do you think, wait, let me find it again. Do you think the gig economy will evolve into displaced creative hubs that favor collaboration and co-creation?
If I understand your question, I think the answer is yes. The term gig economy's gotten a lot of negative heat. I mean, a lot of positive as well, but a lot of negative, because, there's a podcast that I listen to all the time where the two hosts are old and grumpy and geeky, and they like to bitch about how certain gig economy companies don't treat their people very well and treat them as employees and give them health care and medical. And so I don't know. You know anything about that, Jace?
I wouldn't know anything about that. No. I want to hear your take on the gig economy before I chime in on this, because I think a lot of my answers on this.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on some of that stuff, and I think we might differ a little bit. Here's where I'm with you. I think that a lot of these employees are employees, not contractors, and I think some of these companies could do a lot more for a lot of these employees, and I think that's right. And I think things like healthcare are critical. I think things like 401ks and time off, paid time off for you have a baby, all these kinds of things. And so if you're an Uber driver and you're working I don't know what the right metric is, and I'm obviously not a lawyer, so I don't know what the law says, but just a good person looks at it and goes, if this is your job and you're working, you're hustling in this job, it's one thing if you do it for a couple hours on the weekend and it's your mad money or whatever it is, right? It's a part-time fun thing, your quote unquote side hustle. That's one thing. But if it's really like a job, then I think the benefits of an employee are something that need to get seriously looked at. What I love about the gig economy, if you open it up bigly, Jason and I are part of the gig economy, right? We're independent contractors who engage with customers and clients when we want to. And so I think Kevin Maney in his book Unscaled talked about becoming a personal enterprise, which is sort of a highfalutin way to say this. But I think technology gives us an opportunity to have more agency around our work, and to be, some people call it a youpreneur or a solopreneur or a personal enterprise or whatever you want to call it. And we take responsibility for our career. We take responsibility for our financial security, and we decide the kind of work we want to do with the kind of people we want to do it. And we decide when and where the fuck we want to do that. And so I like that part of it. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think as a result of C19, and distributed mobile remote work and all of these things, and people asking, why do I really need all this office space and all that sort of stuff? I think we might see an increase in sort of people becoming solopreneurs, youpreneurs, personal enterprises. And I think if people do it wisely, it's a very powerful career option.
So, I mean, just to the question, if they will evolve into displaced creative hubs that favor collaboration and co-creation, it depends on what kind of gig you're talking about, because that sounds like it's more for designers and creators, not the general gig economy, which is just like, I can sit my butt in a car for 10 hours and drive you around town. So it's a different thing. One thing that I've been toying with is trying to think about how you can have local co-ops for the gig economy. So say I've got, 50 guys in my neighborhood. They all have cars. They all want to drive. Those guys can form a co-op that then go to all of the local delivery services, all the local restaurants, and then have a way to deal with them directly instead of going to the big corporations like the DoorDashes, the Instacarts, and things like that, and just kind of making it more grassroots. So these guys then can have, collective bargaining power to get themselves insurance, get themselves, like better deals on childcare so they can go out and do it, and make it more of a local type of enterprise instead of just saying, okay, I've got a website, I've got a browser, I can go sign up for Uber and then just go out and make almost no money. That's just something I've been toying around with, thinking that might be something now that everything is being rebooted as far as society goes. That just might be something that people should look at as far as how the gig economy can work going forward. Because personally, me, myself, and my roommate and all of our friends in the neighborhood, we have stopped using the big apps to order food from our local restaurants because the big apps take too much money and it's bad for the restaurant. So we only go to places that have their own delivery guys. And we know the delivery guys, when we say hi, we talk about the kids. It's like fantastic. And imagine that just on a community scale. So where you've got everybody is working together to kind of make this thing happen, not on a global scale. You don't go into a town and run it out and say, hey, we're here to break the law and you're going to get Uber whether you like it or not. You're going to get a scooter whether you like it or not. It's like, let's all work with the local businesses and make this kind of more of a community thing. That's just something that I've been thinking about a lot lately because I got a lot of time on my hands since we're not going anywhere. And I think that's how I kind of see that as the future of the gig economy, if somebody can get behind that and make it work.
I think that would be wonderful, particularly if it leads to a broader sense of community and connection.
Mm-hmm.
The average American doesn't know their neighbors. And, I had a 25-minute chat with my neighbor, Heather, this morning. And that's that feeling of community is wonderful. The other thing, Bradley, I'd say to you, in this notion of collaboration and co-creation, interestingly enough, that's the world Jason and I live in. That's the world Eric lives in. That's the world that the legendary Jamie J and Sarah Knox live in, right? And so if you want to be an author, a podcaster, any kind of a creator, you probably have people that you work with in a distributed way in a team. And this notion that the future of work is going to look a lot more like the way a movie gets made and a lot less like a org chart, that's been an idea that's been around for quite some time. And it's just sort of been progressing and progressing and progressing. And so I think there's a chance as a result of C19, a lot of companies are going to go, what's core and critical that we absolutely have to have? And what are resources that we love and we need and so forth and so on, but they don't have to work for us. We bring them in. They're legendary at these things. When we're doing these things, we work with them. And when and I think that also, it leads to a niche down career. You become an expert in a highly valuable thing. You do that thing and only that thing. It's essentially what I did in a lot of ways with my career. I do today only the things that I am the best at, and I don't do any of the other CMO shit. Right. So I think that's an evolution that is being accelerated because of C19. This is the bottom line.
Another thing that I would also like to say is if you're going to work in the gig economy, incorporate yourself. You should be a corporation. I have gotten more benefit out of being a corporation of me than being just a regular, 1099 worker. You get a lot more protections and you get a lot more help from things like the government when things like this happen. If you're a corporation with a business history, you can go to the Small Business Association and they will help you. If you're just out there on your own, just getting a paycheck, trying to, I'm going to work for Instacart. I'm going to work for this, that, and the other thing. No, you want to hire me to go drive your Uber? You're hiring JPD Productions, mofo, to go drive your car. And that way you're protected for a lot of different things. And it doesn't cost that much money. And it is worth it in spades.
Yep. Absolutely. And the flexibility and the freedom. And I don't, but I know many people who work this way who have children, and the ability for parents to co-parent if one or both are doing this, the ability to be at the soccer game and all that stuff gets radically transformed. There's a lot of things that come with it. My buddy Eddie Yoon went through this transformation. We wrote an article for HBR about it a while back. So it's a very powerful mega trend. I think it's going to be deeply accelerated because of C19.
Yep. All right. Next
what
up,
do we got next?
Cecilia S. writes in, we are a startup looking to hire our first marketing person. What should we look for?
Oh, this is always a tough one. So I think there's an aha here, Cecilia. And the aha is, I think this might always be true, but it's absolutely true in the early stages. The CMO, at least at the strategic level, for the most part, should probably be the CEO. So what you're looking for is somebody who can help craft the category strategy. And so somebody who can fly at 30,000 feet and is very comfortable and wants to get in the weeds. And this is why it's hard to find, because you're going to need to do all those things we talked about earlier in the discussion, and a lot more. And at the same time, you're going to have to empower the CEO. And so I think what you're looking for is and I know you're going to hate me for saying this, but it's a well-rounded marketing executive that can put on a scuba suit and go deep, and can put on a wingsuit and fly high. That is to say, air wars and ground wars, strategy and tactics. And I sort of hate to say this because I didn't come from this background, but generally those folks are found more in product marketing than in sort of brand or lead gen or quote unquote corporate marketing, because they tend to have more of a GM, general manager type mentality. But I think that's what you're looking for. And I think there's really, at a high level, there's two types. There's the been there, done that gal, and the rising star. And I think it really depends on your company. Both can work. The one caveat around the been there, done that types, particularly if their last CMO gig or two was at a bigger company, what you don't want is one of these assholes who can't get anything done and just speaks in platitudes and needs a bunch of people throwing rose petals in front of them and treating them like a big deal, when in point of fact, all they do is take other people's work and present it to the executive team and board. So the last thing you want is sort of a suit. You want somebody who's willing to do some real work. I hope that helps.
All right. We've got some questions about a lightning strike here from Sean P.
Oh, Sean is a dear friend. He's been on the podcast. He's a wonderful guy. Dr. Sean, I like to call him.
All right. Dr. Sean was not very verbose here, so we're going to say, I do have some questions for this week's Q&A. And when thinking about a lightning strike, should you try to put on your own event or capitalize on something else that's meaningful in your space, like a big convention? And what are some examples of lightning strike events for small E entrepreneurs to be considering?
All right, there. And hey, Eric, look, I tried to put some of Dr. Sean's question in here. Okay, so this is a big question. So when thinking about a lightning strike, your own event or someone else's, in general, and this is not always true, I've done both. Um, I like to do my own because I like to be in control of the environment and the situation and be the center of it. The problem with somebody else's event, you think about the typical trade show. Well, if you go to the typical trade show and you don't have the biggest booth there, uh, you can have the unintended consequence of looking like a small player. And if you have just one of those pop-up looking booths and there's all these giant booths, then you've sort of shot yourself right in the wallet. And so you want to put yourself in an environment where you stand out and ideally stand alone. Now, there are so and that says, Dr. Sean, your own event or your own centering activity, whatever you want to call it. And on a recent episode, I talked about my buddy Joey, who runs Paradigm Sport here in town. It's a gym in town. Wonderful, amazing guy, incredible place, incredible people. And a couple of years ago, they had this idea for a lightning strike. And what they did was they did New Year's Day in September. And they had this event, and they invited other local businesses that sort of had a connection to fitness in one way or another, clothing stores and surf stores and things along those lines, nutrition, energy bars and drinks and shit like that. So they put on their own little mini fest, and I believe it was right after Labor Day, if I remember correctly. And the POV for the lightning strike was most people set a New Year's resolution to get in shape and lose some weight. Well, why not do that in September? And that way, when Jan 1 comes, you'll be on fire. And sort of that was the idea. And so he did his own event, and it wasn't a $1 zillion event, but he included other companies. He got a little bit of PR. He did, and he got a band, and he got, and it, all this stuff. And by the way, probably the most important thing was the people he invited were friends of existing customers. And he invited others as well, but that was the primary drive, because no matter what we do in marketing, we always have to remember the most powerful marketing is word of mouth. And so that's an example of that. If there's an industry event or some other activity, some other event going on that you think might make sense, here's what I always like to do. Hijack it. Find a way to hijack it. Don't just buy a booth or go to the thing or don't do whatever everybody else is doing. You may do that, but do something that sets you apart. And so you throw a special party, hire a bunch of actors to wear T-shirts with a provocative statement on them, give something cool away, do a room drop so that if everybody in the hotel or everybody at the event gets something from you that nobody else does. So do things that are creative and innovative that allow you to hijack the event so it makes it seem like you're everywhere, even if you're not. Okay, where do you want to go next, Jace? You want to keep going? Dr. Sean has some more.
Yeah, knocking up there for a second. Sorry.
Were you falling asleep? I know you've been up since early this morning.
No. You're coming in and out on my side, so I'm not sure.
The internet's getting a little slow.
It is. I'll edit this in post for part 2 on the audio side of things. So Sean would like to know, how many marketing vehicles should be used in a strike? It feels like too many, especially for a small entrepreneur, is back to just peanut butter marketing. And should you plan a lightning strike when your product or service is something people need when they need it, but are likely to ignore the rest of their lives? For example, cancer treatment, physical therapy, or funeral arrangements. I don't know about you. I generally don't like to watch funeral arrangement
ads for funeral arrangements. So those kinds of companies are, we often call them event companies. That not event in terms of putting on a physical event, but they're focused on a life event that happens. And a lot of the most powerful companies actually are event aggregators. An example of this would be the knot.com. They're not just a place to list your wedding. They bring together resources and all this stuff, and because a wedding is a life event that is an economic event, right? And so I think what you're trying to find are the people who are experiencing that life event. And so what I would do is I would go into digital places where it looks like those people are going to be. And so, look, an obvious one, hopefully you're already doing, is Google AdWords are a great way to intercept somebody that's already looking for something, right? And they tend to be fairly effective. There may be other areas that you can look into. Are there online forums, Facebook groups? The other place to look at for things like this, and I don't normally like to talk about it because it's a secret that I don't like to share, but
ooh, juicy.
Yeah, Quora is one of the most underexploited marketing opportunities out there.
Couldn't agree more.
And why more brands, why more thought leaders aren't on Quora? I don't understand. But let's say, for example, you're targeting somebody who has a specific situation, cancer. Well, I don't know. I haven't looked, but I got to believe there's a gazillion questions on Quora. I just got cancer. What do I do? I just got thyroid cancer. I just got breast cancer. My wife just got, whatever. There's a ton on there. And so, and this goes back to radically generous. If you're an IP-based business, and virtually all companies are IP-based, intellectual property, intellectual capital, you have intellectual capital, intellectual property that's valuable to people. And so go and respond on some of those questions on Quora and begin to engage in conversation and dialogue about cancer, about, my loved one just died. What do I do? Or how do you, I guarantee you there's a question called how to pick a funeral service or funeral company or what have you, et cetera, et cetera. It's a massively underexploited thing, and it's an opportunity to make a difference because you can contribute your knowledge in a way that will endear you to people and hopefully drive some business. And at the same time, many people will experience your content and be helped by it. And I think that's very, very cool. And when you get a reputation on Quora, your shit goes boop, 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 boop. And my buddy Dushka, I think she's at like 160 million views.
It's ridiculous.
And I'm not super active. I'm real streaky on Quora, and I'm just a hair under 1 million right now. And it's not like a thing I do very much of. I sort of something I do for a little bit and then sort of forget about and do for a bit and come back to. The other thing that happens on Quora that most people don't realize, if your post gets attention and people like it and they're upping it and they're thanking you or they're commenting or they're this and they're that, just like on other platforms, it fires the algorithm.
A single amplifier.
Right. And then here's the other thing about Quora. They do custom newsletters based on people's interests. And so if you write good shit that's valuable and you sort of fire the algorithm and you're a good gal or a good boy on Quora, one day you log on to Quora and you get a notification that says, your answer to XYZ question was just emailed out to 10,000 people. And you're like, holy shit.
For free.
And so for free, they just do it because you wrote something good. And so for those sorts of things where you're trying to essentially intercept somebody who's having something happen in their life, good, bad, or indifferent, whether it's I need an oil change for my Mustang or I just got, horrible cancer and I'm terrified, and anything in between. A lot of people go to Quora today. And then the one other thing I'd say is don't forget YouTube. It's the #2 search engine on the planet.
All right. That's what we got this week.
All right. Well, Chase, boy, that flew by fast.
Yes, it did.
Hey, do you want to play a little as we wrap here? And thank everybody for their questions. Thank everybody for joining us live. Can you play a little bit of the Grumpy Old Geeks for me?
Unfortunately, I can't. I got rid of my little Rodecaster Pro, so I don't have the goodies anymore. Sorry.
I love that. Here, I could.
Yeah.
I have. Well, oh, we can actually put it in this. The cool thing we're using, for those of you who might give a shit as we're wrapping up, we're using a technology to do this called StreamYard. Here's their little logo. Isn't that cool? And they allow you to do all sorts of shit, like these banners that Eric was coaching us on, and you can run these videos, and so you can sort of mimic having what would you call the roadcaster?
It's like a sound effect bumper.
Sound
type of
effect
thing.
board.
Like a
Yeah.
zing or a sting or a bumper. Yeah, on a board. Like, yeah, basically.
Yeah,
Like a
so you
soundboard.
can in here you can play your sound effects board on. And if I play it, I wonder if I can play it and then we'll shut up. Hold on, let me just play this and see what happens. Welcome to Lockhead on Marketing, where we're trying the world's first marketing pod. Oh yeah, I can turn it off. Ha! Never did that before. But anyway, see that? So if you upload them into StreamYard, you can have your fun little grumpy old geeks or other sound effects and shit, right?
We'll get you some Lockheed zingers for next time.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you're enjoying the Podstorm. Bless you. Stay safe. Stay legendary. Have a legendary weekend. We got some unbelievable episodes coming up next week in the Podstorm. Look for, in particular, we're going to do an episode further to Dr. Sean's questions about lightning strikes on the lightning and peanut butter sandwich, how to get your mix of peanut butter marketing to keep the trains running on time and still do lightning strikes. So we're going to do that next week. And we're going to introduce you to a concept to align the whole company to get them to act called the Canon.
Nice.
All right. Stay legendary, everybody. Thank you so much.